Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. I am live from my Tommy John home studio. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, how we doing, brother?
Listen, dude, I'm in the middle of an epic travel streak. I've been gone for 3 to 4 days of every week and just about every weekend since the Super Bowl. Got home late last night after visiting Penn State University over the weekend with my son. We're narrowing down the college choices. We're getting down to the end. I am going to ask my guest, because he's intimately familiar with all of the places that my son has left. I'm going to want to get his opinion on it. But the NCAA Tournament is underway. You and I have a very special guest. He's honestly, he's an inspiration to a lot of the people on our production staff, some of whom he's actually worked with very closely, including myself. He's always been an incredible producer, one of the legendary ESPN producers. He became a beloved media personality, not television, not audio, all around media personality. Always been a passionate gambler. I've known the guy for 15 years, going back to my ESPN days. You've seen him on Sports Center with SVP, College Game Day. Our OG listeners are going to know him very well from not just the Behind the Bets podcast from my ESPN days. He also co-hosted the spin-off podcast with Chris Felica, Behind the Bets, the college years, a gambling content pioneer. It's Stanford Steve. Stanford, welcome to the show, brother.
Hello, fellas. Pleasure. Welcome. Chad, it's been too long. I was so pumped to see you at the Super Bowl.
It was nice.
It's the best part. You know, I think everybody that has to deal with the Super Bowl finds their pockets, and everybody has gotten to the point where, you know, it's like, you know, Kyle Brandt did the best thing about seeing people at the Super Bowl. I thought it was tremendous, just the 3 questions that are asked. But people know what to expect when you've done so many of them. And, you know, I'm not the concert going guy. I'm not going to, you know, I just have zero interest. And the best times I've had are, you know, a little small private party, or just telling guys, hey, I'm at this hotel bar. Let's meet there. And those are the best times, because you go to these shows, you can't hear a word anyone's saying. And you want to talk to people because you haven't seen them. And social media is a great connection, but you're not getting what you can get. And then you see things on social media that people are posting, and you're like, I'd love to ask about that. And that's the time to do it. So it was great to catch up with you. And it's been too long. You know, people talk about, you know, it's always like, how did you go from producer to TV? And your name is the first one that comes up, because
Nice.
you gave the Bear and I a little on-ramp to the highway that I didn't know what was podcasts, and you did. And your vision has always been just incredible to me. Going back when you used to come in studio every week with ESPN the Magazine with Scott and Ryan, us develop a friendship there. And I mean, you literally had us on and like, yeah, here, go do your own. And not knowing what the platform was, and then to hear people react, and then Bear and I get to interact with the people we did, and get people to listen. It was, I'll never forget it. I can't believe it. It's been 15 years.
That's so nice of you to say, Stanford.
And it was
I wasn't even expecting that.
No, man.
Simon,
I try and say, out of sight, out of mind. It's not true. People always remember certain things. Maybe certain people want to remember certain things, but no, man. I'll never forget the opportunity you gave us, and it's turned into an unbelievable run. This past year, college football was the most fun I've ever had. With the playoff and traveling, going to Bloomington for the first time, among the top things. So it's a pleasure to meet you guys. I appreciate what you guys do, what you've built. It's really, really incredible in this, you know, podcasting and gambling. It feels like it's never going to end, and there's got to be a roof at some point, but how early you started at Chad is still something I'm amazed by, and the belief that you had in yourself and establishing a crew is really, really cool to see, because we've seen plenty go by the wayside, and here we are.
Dude, I got a feeling Matt Mitchell and Gifford, who used to work with you at ESPN,
Yeah.
they're probably going to cut all that out.
Okay.
But I
Editing
appreciate
purposes,
it.
I get it.
Listen, the behind the bets, the college years, that was the most natural evolution. Simon, you would not know this because you did not care about me before you DM me on Twitter. But the podcast that
How old is Simon?
Simon's 35.
35.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chad knows the deal. I lived a life, Stanford. I was living in Vegas, degenerate gambler. So Russillo and SVP did make my cut, though. So I didn't listen to gambling stuff because I didn't want to fuck with my head.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a know-it-all asshole, especially back in those days. But yeah, when I was a runner, living in my car, running from across Vegas, long days, lots of SVP and Russillo, and the random gems of Stanford Steve just coming in for 1 or 2 seconds. And you know how that is, Stanford Steve. I'm sure you've heard this. Everyone's favorite character on any show is the guy that talks for maybe 1 or 2 minutes, right? So I hit the point of like, I liked SVP, I liked Russillo, but anytime I got to hear a Stanford Steve story, especially your glory days of college, I'm just like, fuck, this guy is the man. So yeah, obviously seeing what you started out as, where you're at now, man, it's pretty epic how you've taken that little niche and made it into a huge, huge career, man. You're the man.
Yeah, Chad created that niche. So again, I thank you. I'm
credit
serious.
to me.
I'm telling you, because
All
it was
credit to me.
it was,
I love
man.
it.
Because I mean, I would still get shit from radio producer like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to tape a podcast." They're like, "What? Like you're talking?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it turned into what it did. But yeah, behind the bets, man. Holy cow, that was long.
Dude, we were doing that show from across
Yeah, the
your
hall.
studio.
Yeah.
With SVP and Russillo, and you and Felica crushed that. You used to come on Behind the Bets, and we would do an episode, a segment on Behind the Bets just about college football. And at some point, like, you guys just didn't need me doing it, and you could go for so long. It was also just the most classic, natural off-ramp transition because of Saved by the Bell, the college years for the old heads.
Yeah.
Like the perfect name. Carry on, gentlemen. And it was fucking great.
I mean,
now you're a star.
You hated college football and you just wanted to talk NFL, and
That's right.
And it couldn't have worked out better because I could care less about the NFL and I love college football. So you nailed it out of the park.
That's called complimentary football right there, Stanford. That's what that is.
Are we going to talk about what is the right side at all? Remember those arguments?
The right side is the winning side. That's the bottom line. Let me do a little business right here. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365, and it is now live in my home state of Illinois, baby. New Bet365 customers, including those in Illinois, get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code favorites. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5, get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, especially in Illinois. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Speaking of Illinois, before we dive in, another reminder, officially RSVP for our free Favorites live show in Chicago. This is a big event. Elite 8 March Madness games on Saturday, March 29th at Joe's on Weed. It's on Weed Street, folks. Free event, free drinks, free live show with college basketball, betting experts, Stuckey and three-man weave. Overall good times. RSVP to reserve your spot. Click the link in this episode's description or just Google Favorites Live Event, Chicago. Be sure to RSVP. All right, Stanford. We know you're a Duke guy, not a Duke grad, but a Duke fan. Like, there's a long list of teams in the past you could see winning the tournament. And right now, like, Florida came on strong.
Yeah.
Obviously, Auburn struggled at the end of the season. Duke has basically 3 guys who will be first round picks. How many teams do you think can realistically win it all right now?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked. I got my list right here. Duke's
Yeah.
region, the East, actually has the most. I make a list every Valentine's Day of teams that I can think can win the national title. Then it changes when the bracket comes out because I get it, and you guys know the deal with gambling people, and like all they want is picks. They want picks. They want picks, and it's really, really hard because I still think the bracket dictates how I feel, and until I see it and see the matchups and all that, I don't really have a great feel. But that gives you more clarity because you start to see paths and things like that. So I have 5 teams in Duke's bracket that I believe can win the national title, and one is hanging on by a whisper, but I can't give up on them because, again, the hardest thing we do in this world, we do things as far as picks and all that, is forgetting what a team looked like the last time we saw them. And it's the hard. I think it's the hardest thing with NBA betting when you start getting the series. I think it's the hardest thing with college football after a team plays a big game, say on the road, because if you focus in on how bad a team looked and they played bad, you're just setting yourself up, and it's really hard to do. You got to clear the table and assess things in a basis of here and with the tournament in that bracket. I have Duke, Arizona, BYU, Wisconsin is the team that's hanging on by a thread, and Alabama. Wisconsin was a team I really liked, getting better all year, and then you go to the Big Ten title game, they play their worst game of the year and lose, and now you look at their draw. Now they got to go to Denver. They played Sunday afternoon. The teams that have played in Big Ten title games don't have a great history in the NCAA tournament. And so you go to Denver. All right, you got to play a Montana team who's not bad at all. Watch them through the season. Actually think they could do pretty well and cover that number. But Wisconsin's that team. And then BYU and Alabama are the 2 teams. I'm so bummed they're in the same bracket, just like Florida and St. John's, I'm sure we'll get to. But BYU and Alabama were 2 teams I thought all year they got to get out of the conference and get to tournament play because of what they bring to the table as far as matchups, size, length, style of play, all that. I love what BYU and Alabama bring to the table, and that one was tough. I keep going back and forth of who's going to the Final Four out of that, and I honestly think Arizona beats Duke because when you look at what Arizona brings to the table, they're better and better. They're getting, the Akron pick is getting more popular and more popular, but it seems like the line keeps going up, which I don't like at all. I think it's up to 13, wherever you're getting numbers from. But Arizona played Duke already this year. They lost in Tucson, low-scoring game. It was after Duke got beat by Kentucky. I think Duke really, really needed it. And Tommy Lloyd was still figuring out their lineup. And now you look at what Arizona did in the Big 12 tournament, which is super impressive to me. I love the way their guards play. And you have the ultimate Caleb Love factor. Yeah, if he's bad, they're not going to win. But if he's good, kids brought a team to the national championship 3 years ago. So I look at Arizona as super dangerous in that bracket, being really, really tough. Everybody's just saying Duke's got a path because, they get Mississippi State and the winner of Mississippi State and Baylor. But I think it's more tricky than that. Those teams aren't going to be afraid. They're going to get everybody's best shot. You don't know what Cooper's going to look like. And I feel like it's a tougher than draw. And then you factor in another thing that I always look at. And when we got off the air last night at 2 a.m., 9 million, over 9 million brackets submitted at ESPN.com, 40% had Duke winning. Like that.
Then it's an auto fade.
I don't want any part of that.
You got to
zero.
Sometimes I feel, Simon, tell me if you feel the same way. I mean, you're a professional bettor, but obviously college basketball isn't where you make your money. I've always felt like the people creating the seedings, the selection committee, either they have an ear for what gamblers don't want to see, or they are so unself-aware, they fuck every team that gamblers really want to believe in. And I feel like I saw it all over the brackets this year, even with Auburn. Like, Auburn's the number 1 overall seed. They got to go to Kentucky, and then they potentially have to play Louisville, which is essentially a home game in Lexington for Louisville in the second round if Louisville wins its opening round game against Creighton. Like, what the fuck is up with the selection committee? When you look at this, Stanford, do you feel like they have an ear for what gamblers are thinking, or do you think they're just bad at this?
I think they're bad. I really do. You look at some of the spreads. I mean, like I said, I love BYU, and that VCU game is brutal because VCU is a great defensive team. Now, VCU's only played 2 tournament teams, and they got to go to Denver, as I pointed out, after playing Sunday afternoon too, which likes BYU, but then the line's in the 2s, I think. And then you just look at the 12-5. Colorado State's favored over Michigan.
I know.
Like it's brutal the way they do it. And I always held back that it was done the right way, but this year I can't with the North Carolina thing. Like, bracket, what's the site? Bracket Matrix, 111 brackets, all, bracketologists, computers, the whole thing. 111 out of 111 had West Virginia and North Carolina out. And and then you see the selection show with the vice chair now, because Bubba was the AD of Carolina. Like
Bubba, who got $70,000 bonus because North
can't-
Carolina.
I can't get there now, and I think it's a shame, because this being the brand, and Indiana factors into it too, because immediately I saw Carolina, and I'm like, well, Boise State's out, and they're just going to go with the names, and then you see Texas, and it's like, whoa. So it's brutal, because I always want the little guys to go, and I get the SEC is the best conference ever with 14 teams, and I watch it as much as anybody. But like, you're just, I still, you look at team like Drake, if they didn't win their conference tournament, I thought they deserved to be in. They're like 30-4. At some point, I want teams that are capable, and it's only going to get worse. Heard people talking like the out of conference games. Like, all right, you want to get quad 1 wins. All the shoe companies do the preseason scheduling, like out of conference preseason. That's all done shoe company. Maui has the Nike school, Under Armour, Adidas. Like, they control all that. So the little guys can't even get in on that. And then, like, I look at everyone's picking High Point, right? Because they're playing Purdue. It's pretty basic why everyone's picking High Point. They see a good record. They see Purdue, forget that they went to the national title game last year, and just think about years previous where Painter has failed, who I think is still an excellent coach. High Point hasn't played a quad 1 game in 2 years. How do you equate that? Like, it's just, going off on a whim, and I'm sure they'll win and people will be happy and say, hey, I told you so. But I can't get there doing that when I look at what I watch. And, it's the ultimate dice roll, this tournament. And, coaches are judged on what they do in this thing. And I think it's tough. You go to a guy like Rick Barnes, I think the world of him, the way he's recruited, the different schools that he's won at, and he's got 1 Final Four. But if you look close, there's plenty of Sweet 16 and Elite Eights in there. Like, I think the world, I wanted Houston and Tennessee to go to the Final Four, and now they're in the same bracket. So it's always handcuffs when it comes to the committee. But yeah, I think they could be better.
Simon, you get all this secondhand intel from all the people that are professional bettors. Does it ever make you want to go all in on college basketball? Like, for an extra 2 months, just extend your season? Do you see opportunities there? We've never actually talked about this.
No, but I guess it's because it doesn't line up well with football, where like my hardest months really are that December, January, February stretch. And then when I'm done with that, I'm so burned out. It's like, fuck, am I really about to learn 1,000 college kids' names that are probably all going to be gone within the next year or two? It's just a lot to take on. But college is a thing where you can, someone like me that's further away from it, I feel like I do make more money than the guys who are locked in on it and they are so into it, where I can pick their picks and I don't overthink it. Like, me and you joked about it last year. We said it. UConn felt like free money, and we bet that heavy and we rode it all the way to the finals. And sometimes it really is that simple, right there. Those unique years of great coaching, great team chemistry. Don't overthink it. Where this year, I feel like Stanford keeps talking about it a little bit, where it's open. Like, every team that is the best, there's a weakness to it. There is a reason you can talk yourself into them failing. So these are my favorite type of years, where last year, me and you had fun because we made a ton of money betting UConn. I want the madness. Like, that's what we're here for. We're here for the madness. And last year, not that it wasn't a great tournament, we just didn't have the madness like we wanted. So this year, I'm I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like we're gonna have a really crazy open field. I don't know if Stanford Steve has the same view.
Totally. Like I said, I have plenty of teams each region has at least 3 teams I believe that can win a national title. Now, I'm more optimistic for certain teams, and don't look at the path, but I just think about what I watch when I see that team. Everyone talks about, the St. John's Florida bracket, right? I mean, Florida could not be more impressive in how good the SEC was. They won every game in the tournament by double-digit points, and they played. Let's see. I'm trying to think who they played. A 10 seed in Arkansas, or no, that was Auburn. I forgot who they played. Oh, they beat Missouri. They're a 6 seed. Then they beat Alabama's a 2 seed, and then they beat Tennessee, who's a 2 seed, all by double digits. Like, I get it. I kind of want them to lose so the odds would help, but that's what you get here. And are you guys familiar with the Calcuttas and all that, where the
Yeah.
auctions for the team?
Yeah, of course.
I can't wait. I think UConn went for close to 40K in ours last year, and it was warranted. Like, we were in on it for a while, and I'm just like, man, this is because you have to win the tournament there. Where I like this year more, where I could pick some teams off at a cheaper price that can, hey, all I need is them to get to Sweet 16, and we made money on this team. So that's why we have ours in a couple days. I can't wait, but it's more open. There's more options, and we've done an unbelievable job of avoiding the monster upsets. A couple years ago, Illinois was the most expensive team. They lost in the second round to Loyola. Like that hurts, man. Auburn was red hot, won the SEC tournament last year. Big, highest price 4 seed by far, lose to Yale in the first round. We've done a good job of that, avoiding that. So that's another factor in the whole gambling thing, that if you know it, you're fascinated by it. It's super fun when it goes well. But yeah, we've done a good job of avoiding the catastrophe.
When you do your Calcuttas, and I'll explain it sort of as generally as I can so people understand. It's basically you're buying teams that you think are going to win the entire tournament, and you're basically going all in on those teams, but you can invest in sort of 3-4 different teams depending on the number of people in the Calcutta and the size of the pool that you want it to be, et cetera, et cetera. When you are playing in a Calcutta, do you go in with a couple people that you're pooling your money?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Our biggest thing is we basically have the percentages, but we don't know the total number yet, because you don't know what you spend until, So it's, that year with Illinois, we got out on Illinois. They ended up going for high 20s, I would say. And I think we were in at like 19, and they were like the first 1 seed, because you do it backwards. Like, you get the 11 and 14 seed in a region. I think you get 12 and 15, how we do it. But then once you get to, the top 4 seeds, it's every team's its own. So, a couple years ago, who did we have? Oral Roberts, when they made the run. Like, I think we spent 2,500, and they got to the Elite 8. Like, we were, and the way they do it is you don't know the payouts for each round, because you don't know how much money is in the pot. But once you know that, a first round win and a second round win are 1% of the pot, and then it doubles, and it keeps doubling. And it's, those sweets to get to the Sweet 16 is enormous. To get to the Elite 8 is even bigger, and obviously the Final Four and title game are monstrous. But it's a super fun, and we got to, we've been together 5 years, I think, now, since I moved here. So it's super fun if you get a chance. And you want to take a different way of looking at the tournament. It's totally different, because it also gives you betting chances. If you it's sort of a the opposite of a happiness hedge, where you could do that. So, and then if you don't get the team that you really wanted, you can go bet them, if you wanted, if you're really that confident and there's discrepancies on your team or something like that. So it creates a whole nother viewpoint of the tournament, which I find super cool.
You know what? I don't know that I've ever asked you this, or if I did, I can't remember the answer. You're from Connecticut. Like, how did you get into betting?
Being around people that were doing it and weren't supposed to. A lot of relatives. And Chad, it's funny. I get asked, you guys get all questions all is betting ever going to stop? The advertising, the whole thing. I just think people are so much more better off now because, I've seen and heard horror stories of, local bookies, right? And you see these people and they're just betting on credit. So yeah, they're going to run if they're down. Rule number one is you can't bet money you don't have. That's rule number one in gambling. You're only asking for trouble if you do that. And with the apps now, your money's like it's already there. Yeah, you want $100 on a game, they're taking it right then, and then you get it on the other end. It's just like going to a book in a sports book at any of the places, and there's no more betting with credit. So I think the way, if you have direct access to the account where that app is set up, you could run into some issues. But as far as just wheeling and trying to play catch up, it's kind of you're not able to do it on these apps because the money's up front. So seeing that and everybody being infatuated with the parlays now, I get it. It's way healthier than the stuff that I grew up around, where it was going against rule number one, and it was people betting money that they didn't have and being allowed to because they were betting on credit with a guy.
Was that just like family, friends, family, buddies in the neighborhood?
Yep. The old slips back in the day. You remember the slips?
Yeah, for sure.
Those slips were going around high school like hotcakes, man. You get your hand on a slip and somebody's booking it, and then somebody hits one and they don't have them. It all started then, man.
Listen, back in the day, this is semi before Simon's time, maybe not, but parlay cards were the big thing.
Oh.
And parlay cards would just fly through the high schools.
Yep.
And that's how it got a lot of people into betting. Like, Simon, you live sort of on the cusp of all this because, Stanford and I are a little bit older than you.
A little bit, but like Delaware, my memories of Delaware is going to a pizzeria and filling out a parlay card at the pizzeria while waiting to get my slice. And it's like, that was at 17, 18. Like, we drive down from Jersey to Delaware to get a slice and make a bet. And the thing Steve's talking about, like, cracks me up, the thing about like my bookie, especially when I was young, is not only the credit thing, but like having to meet up with that bookie to give cash to.
Yep.
And having that conversation and be like, I'm 100 short, and him give me that look of like, it's no problem. Yeah. Like, he knows he's got you down the road anyway.
Yeah, you got my number.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing too, Chad, is people don't like from 12 to 1 on an NFL Sunday. Like, everybody knew where the guy was, and you had to call, and that's when they didn't usually have what do we call it, total phone, where you could call waiting.
Yeah, right.
It was just like, I'm trying to call. It's busy. It's busy. He's got the phone off the hook. And so, like, you had to make the call. And to your point, sound like you had to go meet up. And, like, was there going to be a conversation? Or, it's just, and, everybody had their weeks, right? All right, week close. The NFL is always, do you give Monday night as the end of week? And uncles, another words I live by, Monday Night Football. If this game was at Sunday at 1 o'clock, would you be betting it? And it's like, probably not, but everybody's down and they're trying to chase on Monday night. So let's throw down and lose even more.
The truth is, it's not on Sunday at 1 o'clock. It's on Monday at 8:15.
Yeah.
So I think I might.
Yep, exactly. So, oh God. Yeah.
A buddy of mine just wrote, his name is Alan Loeb, and he has been on the show before. He's a very successful screenwriter. He wrote the movie 21. He wrote the movie Wall Street 2. He's written 10, 12 movies that a lot of folks have seen, has continued to produce a lot. He just wrote a story about his gambling addictions and actually was really thoughtful about why he believes legalized sports betting is better, even though there are constant commercials now, and this has been a crazy week about sweepstakes or about the, Commodities and Futures Trading Commission and whether or not they're going to continue to allow the prediction markets like Robinhood and Kalshi to allow full, basically, buying and selling of teams in March Madness. That it's still better because of what you just pointed out, Stanford, which is you're not betting on credit, right? You're not if you're digging yourself into a hole, it's a
Yeah.
different conversation than when you're digging yourself into a hole on
No,
credit.
young kids don't know. I know guys who, especially my runner days, Chad, like between 2010 and 2012, I can tell you a handful of guys that owed money and became priest or joined the military or just, completely disappeared, moved to Argentina. You don't hear those stories as much as you did back then, because guys would get up to 20K, 30K debt and they don't have a dollar to their name. So like Steve's talking about, I'm getting all these funny memories thinking back to these crazy characters I knew.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I haven't seen Jimmy in a couple of weeks. Oh, that dude's a fucking priest now, dude. He's gone. It's like, what? Yeah, he's a priest now. And it's like, those are the things I think back to of those days of credit, man. Guys were just on the run.
Fellas, before we witness any legendary buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, or diaper dandies this NCAA tournament, it all starts with all of us staying cool, calm, and collected this March. And the best way to do that, staying truly comfortable, the kind of flexible, breathable comfort only possible through our sponsor, Tommy John. Before the confetti of a better life can fall, before the first chords of a one shining moment montage can play, we must strive for best in class underwear and the best casual essentials money can buy. So box out underperforming undergarments and crash the boards of comfort with Tommy John. Simon, why will you be wearing Tommy John in 2025?
Because comfort is king, Chad.
Right now, you can shop TommyJohn.com/favorites and get 25% off your first order. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/favorites. That's TommyJohn.com/favorites. Stanford, for those who might not know your full backstory, your nickname is Stanford because you played football at Stanford. I don't think people realize how big of a recruit you were. Remind me, like, where were you ranked when you were coming out of high school? Because I also believe you had an offer to Notre Dame. I think you and I talked about this once, but give me sort of the context for your football all-star hood and where else you could have gone.
I'm trying to remember the name of the magazine, but this was pre-internet.
Athlon. Was it Athlon?
No, it wasn't Athlon. It was like a Blue Chip Illustrated or one of those.
Parade. Was it Parade?
No, I didn't make the Parade team though. Oh gosh, what was the name of it? Anyway, I'm on my visit to Stanford, and Mose Risen was the guy who recruited me, and comes running out of his office like he knew that I was there. I was there with my brother on my visit, and he's like, "Look, look, look, look!" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "They ranked you number one." I'm like, "What?" And it was like number one player in the country. I'm like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "Okay." So I to make it quick, like I could have went anywhere, whatever. People throw around 5-star, the whole thing. Like went on these visits, went to camp at Notre Dame. Holtz was still there, but that staff was in flux. A lot of miscommunication. Mac Brown was at North Carolina. Nebraska was really good. Tom Osborne was there, best guy in our league the year before, went to Nebraska, Tony Ortiz. So there was that connection. Spurrier came to the high school Heisman thing, which was a tri-state area team that I made through MSG. That was something I'll never forget. Eddie George won it that year, and then they selected 15 guys in the area. And Spurrier saw my highlight film, was like, "Hey," he's like, we're playing a national championship. You want to come? I'm like, "What?" Like literally the Monday morning after my visit to Stanford, I'm like driving home and I'm like looking at flights to Arizona, and like just had lunch with Tiger Woods at Stanford. Like it was a complete shit show. And to be 17 years old in that time, you start, coaches could call once a week and you're talking to all these coaches and you're building relationships. Hey, how are you? How'd you play last week? How's school going? And you start building relationships, and then you got to tell these guys no. And as a 17-year-old kid, it was super, super scary. And I remember just wanting to get the list down because I wanted to be done and decided before Christmas. And it was super frantic, scary, and not knowing. We see kids getting NIL deals now. And I just think about like NIL. I couldn't handle that. Like I couldn't even figure out where I wanted to go to school. So yeah, it was best of the best. Treated like royalties on visits, and ultimately decided to go to Stanford because my birthday is January 1st. Grew up watching the Rose Bowl on my birthday my whole life, and there was always a dream to play on my birthday and to go to a school like see Stanford. Like I still put it up against any campus in the world, and to be able to get that education because I really, my dad passed away when I was going to my junior year of high school. Wanted to go out and prove to myself like I got some growing up to do here, and was able to do that, and ended up playing in the Rose Bowl against Ron Dane in Wisconsin on my 23rd birthday, which was my final game, and then took an internet startup job that summer in August and was broken out of a job by Thanksgiving.
Jesus
So
Christ.
that was a treat and a lesson to learn really quickly. And I mean, I say all the time now with kids in college, like you got to have a plan, man. It's not the cool thing to do when you're in college, but shit, like when people are done helping you pick classes and all that, like it's just you, and your whatever support system you got, and if you don't have it or have a plan, that's the roughest transition I think in a lifetime, because you're getting handed things. I mean, as a scholarship football player, you're getting handed things that you're so taken for granted, and then to be punched in the face, you know, living in Palo Alto, we were in Menlo Park, no check, and I was never a guy that was like, yeah, speaking of betting with credit, yeah, I got rent next month. Like I was like, I'll never forget, like Monday, took the job in like Labor Day, August 2020. No, I mean August 2000, and Monday before Thanksgiving, like calling my mom, like, "Mom, I'm out of a job. Like we got bought out, and like it was done." Like you never heard those stories of the internet stuff. Like I had guys that got in like late '90s, got in with Google, uh, Yahoo, like whoever, like off and running, like set in 5 years after being graduated, and I'm broke without a job. Not even 4 months out of college, so it was pretty eye opening. But I wouldn't trade it in. People ask me all the time, "Would you have rather gone?" I could have went to any SEC school, but the friends and things I was able to do at Stanford, I'll never trade in for anything.
Do you remember the name of the company?
I don't.
What were you doing?
It was some like internet sale. I have no idea. I didn't even know what I was doing. It was just, a couple guys and were like, "Hey, let's do this." So, yeah, it was.
I know that era. It's interesting you say that. We were talking before I came on about colleges and like I'm just going through this whole process with my kid right now who's narrowing it down.
Mm,
It's coming down to Maryland, Penn State, and Indiana was sort of the third tier. And wherever we've gone, he's met with the people who run the programs that he's interested in. And every time we're done, he's like, he loves the school he just met with.
yeah.
We were
Oh
just at
God.
Penn State.
Oh
But I think part of it is he feels badly saying no to people
yeah.
who have been so nice to him about saying, "Hey, come here and this is what we can do." And not like he's being recruited like an athlete. It's a completely different thing. But when you're 17 years old, I can see it. I can see how hard
Mm-hmm.
it is if someone is being kind to you to say no to them. It's brutal.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, I got three little girls, and I'm looking at kids. I go to high school games all the time, and in this area, it's loaded. I mean, I watch the tournament and notice how many kids are from the DMV. Anyway, went and had lunch with a kid 2 weeks ago who's in college, journalism, communications, the whole thing, and we're talking, and I'm just, the idea of how to get on air obviously comes up, and like when he asks me a question, he's looking at me in the eye, and I'm looking at him, asking him like he's not even making eye contact. I'm like, dude, this has got to change. Like, put the phone down, and like there's nothing more important still in my like than face to face conversations. Like even if it is on a Zoom, like we're looking at each other, expressions, the whole thing. So it's really, really hard. I think it's a lot because I hate to say it, but I go back to COVID with kids now. Like, you don't know what they were going through. I mean, nobody was. I mean, somebody posted the other day. 5 years ago today, we were told to stand 6 feet apart. I kind of wish those times came back for a couple minutes a day. So it's been such a whirlwind, and everybody was a different age just 5 years ago, and then to come out of it. It's pretty fascinating to see how people have adapted and changed. And I'm constantly, with my kids, like, look, when you're talking to me, look me in the eye. And I feel like the phones and social media and people just swiping left and right and scrolling up and down, it's all we do, where it takes away from face-to-face conversations. And we need more of that. And to get to your point about the 17-year-olds making college decisions, it's big boy stuff, man. You got it. And there's no other way than to look it in the eye. And I still say brushing your teeth every day in the morning. Like, look at yourself in the mirror. You happy with what you got? Because that's how you start your day. And yeah, it's a lot, but as long as you take them on face first, I say all the time, you're going to be better off, because it's one giant step you don't realize you're taking, but it's only going to help you as we get older and you got to make more decisions. You learn a lot about yourself in those times, and it's part of growing up.
It's so funny because you say it's a big boy decision. I'm driving home with him yesterday from State College, and I said to him, I'm not going to say anything. This has to be your decision. I would love to be making the decision for him right now. I would love to tell him exactly what to do and exactly why he should do it and exactly what are the most important reasons to do exactly what I think he should do. I can't say a fucking word. And it's fucking driving me nuts. Because Simon, I want to tell people what to do.
Yeah, you got to let him make his own path, though, and, make the right and wrong decisions. And like you just said, whatever school he chooses, the deal, Chad. He might hit you up in a year and be like, I fucking hate this place. I want to come home. I want to come back to a different school. And that's just the way it is with college. And, I know plenty of people that, I had a weird run where, like, people I knew were graduating. We went through that major recession in 08 and 09. And, talking to those people that basically went through the shit, they're way off better now than the people that graduated in 2012, 2013 that never experienced that low, that survival, I do think it's weird to even talk about, but I do think a big part of life is failing. Like, how you deal with failure really is all it is. Like, I know plenty of guys who failed, kind of woe was me, and gave up in life, and they kind of treaded water the rest of their life. I know other guys who failed and have gone on to do incredible things because they pushed through adversity. So I'm with you, Chad. It's a tough decision what he's making right now, but it's like one of 1,000 tough decisions he's about to make going forward. And that's the craziest part. Once you got out of high school, it's like, you're done with the kid bullshit, man. Every decision you make is a major decision on your life going forward. So that is tough.
Look, Stanford went from playing in the Rose Bowl
yeah.
to being out of work within a year. And now he's on College Game Day, right? Like, that is a freaking journey. Stanford, when you're on game day, everyone seems to just stop when Nick Saban is talking. Like, I thought he was a revelation on game day, and the McAfee-Saban interplay is amazing. But what is it like with Saban on set, in production meetings? Like, what do you glean when you're listening to him talk? Because he captures something that is really sort of profound whenever he's talking about college football.
Well, there's a lot of pieces. First thing is experience. Like, he's experienced so much, and he talks about his failures all the time and how he responded to them and his support system. But he's just so smart, man. God, like, because he's, whether it's recruiting the best players in the country or being in the biggest situations of a national championship game, and the way he goes about things, like, everything's just thought out, and he doesn't jump the gun on anything. He always has something in his pocket to give you. And this year, like, first time I think we were together was Ireland, and he's milling around and he's doing his thing, and he's got the computer going, and he's got the glasses, and it's like, hey, coach, I'm, whatever, and I'm here, whatever you need. And, it's a process of, it's fucking Nick Saban, man. Like, he's got an army of ways he does things. And, he's got a circle that's pretty strong, and not anybody is just jumping in that circle. So there's a sense of trust. There's calls that you're on as far as the show where, hey, I'm bringing this to the table. But the one thing that was just eye-opening, I found myself, like, anytime he talks, it's silent. Whether we're in the conference room, whether we're on a Zoom, and I'm just constantly just taking notes, writing everything down. Because, again, it's so thought out, it's so smart, and it's super interesting. And his stories are just out of this world. He had us to his house when we went to game day in Tuscaloosa, and we just sat around dinner table, and he just told story. Like, it was amazing. From his rise in coaching to try and recruit players to losing players, best players he lost, like, just incredible. And then for him to come on the air, and we had plenty of back and forth where we really had fun. And then I was like, how you talk to an older person, and you're like, are they really listening to me? And then, we had the exchange at Cal where I was talking about I dated a girl from Cal, and that literally was from a 5-minute conversation in the middle of the Cal hotel the night before, when he was like, you ever come over here and hang out when you were at Stanford? I was like, yeah, my girlfriend actually here. I was here a lot. And from that, he took it the next morning when I took my shot at the Cal fans. And we have great relationship. We sat next, so like that playoff thing was nuts. Like we did Notre Dame Friday night, and we were at Columbus the next morning for game day. Then we did Orange Bowl. They flew us to the Cotton Bowl, and I'm on a private jet sitting next to Nick Saban watching the end of the Orange Bowl, and I'm like, somebody please take a picture of this. And like having coffee with Reese the next morning, getting ready for the Cotton Bowl show. I'm like, dude, we'll never forget that night for as long as we live. Watching, like, Nick's losing his mind on quarterback play, like the game's getting tight, throw the ball away, you're holding on to the ball too long, like him being a fan watching the game. Is just a real person under there too, which you never saw, at the press conferences, and him going off on his players and the tangents on Lane Kiffin when he was assistant coach. Like, it's been really, really cool, and he's just an unbelievable person.
Yeah, you hit on a couple things there. People watching game day, people watching Sports Center with you and Scott, those will never be the things, the on-air things are never the things that you're going to remember from any of your highlights. It's always going to be the shit that happens behind the scenes.
Correct.
And not all of it is going to be private jet watching the end of an Orange Bowl. That is like the extreme.
Yep.
That's also what makes this business so much fun, is like these moments that you capture that are completely off camera.
Yep. Yeah, and going back to that point, Chad, about like being part of the process, and Simon talking about these decisions and how they get bigger and bigger. Like, I don't have a job, and I'm trying to get figured out. I had a communications degree. Hey, let's try and pursue this. And like 2 weeks in to getting a part-time job as a production assistant at ESPN Radio, I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to make a lot of money, but you know what? When I hear, get a Friday night or a Saturday night, we're out with the guys and the boys, and we're BSing, and they're bitching about having to, go back to cutting lawns and everything. Like, I was super fired up to go to work every single day. Like, I'm watching games and cutting highlights, and trying to get put on one of the regular shows to bring content to that. Like, I could care less about what I was making, but I was fired up to go to work every single day. And that's another choice you make. Like, you want to be happy, and there's different, money's not everything all the time, but like I said, looking in that mirror, brush your teeth every morning. If you're happy with that person, go for it. And if you're not, you got to do something about it. But that's things and decisions you got to make.
How do you manage now? Simon and I deal with this all the time. Sports betting content from the time you and I started doing it, 2011, 12, 13, when we were doing the shows together, I was coming on with you and Scott and Ryan. to now has evolved so aggressively that you're front and center with so much of it in some of the highest profile shows on television. Forget about just sports television, but like Game Day and Sports Center with SVP, like those are massive shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you now manage people coming after you for sports betting when you're wrong? How has that changed? How has the conversation changed as all of this has evolved?
Huh. Well, no one says thank you when you win or congrats. No, it's silence. It's silence. And it actually helped me last year. I think I was under like 8 or 10 under 500 last year on game day. And it took me like 2 weeks where I was like, this social media thing, you can have it. Like and my rule number one is like, now we're going to be in March Madness. Like the last thing I'm doing while these games are going on is going on social media. Like I cannot, like, just the grown in negativity, a tweet that somebody sends that they're never ever going to say to your face in person. Never. They'll never do it. But they'll hide behind their screen name and write whatever they want to you. So that actually helped me because I talked to plenty of people and they live by it. Like they do. I mean, I'm on set with other Sports Center shows and like we go to break and boom, they're checking their phone to see what people are saying about what they just said about their team or their player, their coach, whatever. Like I don't need that because guys do it when they wake up in the morning and they check. And you're on TV. No one's saying anything good. They're not. They're picking apart what you're saying. And I think that totally messes with people's heads because they read it and they act like that those are the only people watching the show. You know what I mean? Like TV, there's still plenty of people that are watching the TV and aren't on social media. So having a bad year picking games actually was the best thing because it made me not go on it. Like it made me focus more on watching tape and watching games and reading, which I think is still a huge part. I'm still a guy that prints out NCAA tournament capsules on every team, reads those and goes through with a highlighter. Like that's what I'm doing my time. I'm not going on and seeing what somebody's saying or listening to this breakdown. Like I got my own way of going about things. It's been super successful and I'm going to stick to it. But this day and age, it's really, really hard for people to put their phones down, man. And like I said, the gambling, Twitter, gambling, social media, there's never congratulations on there. So don't do it because you think you're going to get that. It's just like starting in the beginning of a sports meeting when you think you're going to make money because you're not going to do that. Like again, it's been a blessing in disguise, but the social media thing, I mean, you guys deal with it constantly. It's just thankless, ultimate thankless job because, we'll get in March Madness and it's like, all right, pick the upset. And it's like, okay, as soon as I pick the upset, the team that I'm picking against, that fan base thinks their team sucks. And like a lot of times I'll have had that team like the last 3 games. It's like, where were you the last 3 games when we just hit 3 in a row on your team? I just don't like the matchup. I'm sorry. I don't hate your team. And then to go to all these colleges with game day and get the interactions with people is just hilarious.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, really enjoy your work or this. And it's like, oh, face-to-face conversations are pretty real. And there is something. So it's it's a different world that, like as you said, Chad, than when we started. And I just say be careful. Like don't go. Scott says all the time, Twitter's not the place to go for positive feedback. It's pretty simple, and use it as you do, and use it to your advantage because there are some really good things on there and connecting with people that you haven't seen in a while or checking out or reading an article. There's plenty of good stuff.
You can come here for positive feedback, Stanford. Simon and I will always give it to you. Thanks for coming on the show, brother. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365 and is now live in my home state of Illinois. New Bet365 customers, including those in Illinois, get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code Favorites, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, especially in Illinois. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Thank you very much to Stanford Steve for coming on the show. He is a total pro and a good friend. Simon and I will return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page to discuss MLB opening day, Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Download a Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.